afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by welcoming all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for another lunchtime takeaway session. Today, we've got two awesome speakers, Dovi and Eddie. They're going to be talking about the future of the web. So we all know that the web is an ecosystem that allows for a whole range of frameworks and libraries, etc. But today, Dovi and Eddie are going to tell us what we should be keeping our eye on. Dovi, the floor is yours.
So today I'm going to be speaking about Mythril.js, which is a front-end JS framework. Eddie's going to be speaking about Deno, which is our backend. We've done a demo that uses both. So what is Mithril? Mithril is basically just a modern client-side JavaScript framework for building single-page applications. With those of you familiar with Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings describes Mithril as a silver-like substance, but it's stronger and lighter than steel. So that's basically what Mithril is like. It's a very powerful tool. Why would I use it though? There's so many other tools that are very similar to this. There's Vue, there's React, there's tons of tools. So it's very, very small. So I took React and I just created a React project and I built it. And this comes to 490 kilobytes. With our actual Mithril project that actually does something useful, it's 146 kilobytes, which is much smaller. It also contains a lot less dependencies than React does. So by default, React contains 6 dependencies, Mithril only 1. And it also pretty much contains everything that you probably will need. It's also fast. So when you compare it to a lot of the other popular front-end JavaScript tools, Vue, React, and Angular, it's much faster than most of them, like half the speed of React. So this is also because it renders things more intelligently. It doesn't re-render everything every time, and it usually only re-renders things that it knows have changed, basically. So it's also familiar. It's in the docs of Mythril.js, it actually says that if you know React.js, then you'll probably be okay with Mithril. There's no really new concepts in Mithril. There's also create Mithril app, like this create React.js app, which I've used to create the demo. So yeah, it's pretty familiar in general. So I'm going to do a quick demo that I built. I'm going to run the backend and run Mithril. So it's just basically a little calculator app. And that's basically all it does. It clears if you clear, and yeah. I'm just going to step through the code a little bit. So basically, I've got a main view over here. This is the main view. This is basically the state over here. So unlike, for example, React, where state updates actually cause re-renders, over here, state updates don't necessarily cause re-renders. It causes a re-render when you have on clicks or most event listeners. There are some event listeners that don't cause re-renders. Also, when you do network requests, pretty much any network request causes a re-render, and obviously if you force a re-render, that causes a re-render. So yeah, this is basically it. It's very simple. I've got a component, so it uses Babel. Obviously, it doesn't have to use Babel, but in my example, it's using Babel, so it's very simple to understand. There's nothing really too too complicated. So yeah, and obviously when I press equals, it calls the backend, which goes to Eddie's backend, which he's going to explain to you in a few minutes. And yeah, and the equals also causes a re-render because it's an on-click. And yeah, so I'm going to pass on to Eddie to explain to you a little bit about Deno now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'd like you guys to meet Deno. Deno is my new sock puppet. Well, I'm just joking. Well, the Deno logo sort of looks like a sock puppet if you look at it, but it's actually a dinosaur. Well, I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, this is Deno. Deno is a new JavaScript runtime. It's about 2 years old. The initial release was in March in 2018, and the official or the stable release, it's just been released now in August. So it's a brand new, basically brand new JavaScript runtime. Okay, so what is Deno? So just a fun fact that blew my mind. Deno, if you split the syllables, like Deno, if you remember the syllables from primary school, Deno, and then if you just flip the syllables, it makes Node. So Deno is actually an anagram for Node, for those who didn't know. So Node and Deno, kind of similar. So more about Deno. Deno was developed by Ryan Dahl. So Ryan Dahl is the same guy who developed Node. He made Deno because there's some stuff that he didn't like about Node, which he felt he could do better, or there's some improvements he saw that he identified that he could make. So he decided to make a brand new framework for it, or a runtime. And Deno, okay, another fact about Deno is that it's compatible with TypeScript out of the box. So you don't need to install an external dependency to run TypeScript like you would have to do with Node. With Deno, you just have to run the file with the Deno command and run the code with the Deno command, and it'll just work. And also it is secure by default. So with Deno, all code that you run with Deno, you have to grant permissions if the code is going to do something or access something on your machine, like your file system or the network. So if the code is going to alter something on your machine, or if it's going to use some sort of resource on your machine, you're going to have to give the code permissions. So that's what makes Deno more secure than Node, because with Node, you just run anything and it'll do whatever it did without you knowing. Okay, wait, there's more. So Deno also utilizes current web standard APIs. So you can use web APIs like fetch in Deno, which wasn't true with Node. And also, Deno contains a standard module library, which is maintained and developed by the Deno team. So if you go to the Deno website, you'll notice that there's a standard library, which comes with Deno, which you can use. And then another thing is that packages are installed via imports and not npm. So with Deno, there is no package manager. You just literally you just import a URL. So you'd import from a URL. And then, okay, so a comparison between Deno and Node. So Deno runs with Google's V8 engine as well as Node. So both Node and Deno use Google's V8 engine. And then the difference is that Deno or Node is written in C++ and JavaScript, whereas Deno is written with Rust and TypeScript. I read some article, or I just read somewhere, I've seen somewhere that Rust is faster than C++, so I take it Deno performs better than Node. Though I've also heard people say that Node isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So although Deno might be better than Node, Node is still around for a while. And then another difference is that package managing. Oh yeah, the package managing. Node uses npm for those of you who know Node, and then Deno uses URLs. I'll show that to you in the demo shortly. And then with importing, Node uses CommonJS. So CommonJS is just the require. So when you importing stuff, you'd use the require function. But then with Deno uses more modern JavaScript. So it uses the import from whatever place. And then with security, Node grants the code full access to all the resources on your machine, to everything. So Node code can basically do anything without your permission. And then with Deno, you need to grant permission. So it's permissioned access. And then with Node, TypeScript support isn't built in, and then with Deno, TypeScript support is built into Deno. Okay, cool. So it's Deno time. I mean demo time. I thought that was funny, but anyway. Okay, cool. So, oh yeah. So just a quick explanation, or just to introduce you to Deno. I thought it would be a good place to start would be, how do I install Deno? So to install Deno, if you're on a Windows machine, well, first of all, what you do is you visit their website, which is deno.land. Deno.land. And then once you're on deno.land, you just scroll down, and then there's some instructions that are here that can show you how to install Deno. So if you're on Windows, you'd use PowerShell or the CMD, but PowerShell is preferable. And there's Scoop, so you could install, there's a link here, you can install Scoop. Scoop is just a similar to Brew with people who know Mac. So it's just a thing that helps you install commands. And then there's also Chocolatey. So you could use Chocolatey if you want to use that to install Deno. So I just copied and pasted this into the PowerShell, and yeah, Deno worked. Okay, so once you have Deno installed, if you just run Deno in the shell, there's an interactive REPL. So REPL is just a read, evaluate, print loop. So if you type in any JavaScript in here, like const x equals hi Deno, and then you type x there, it evaluates to hi Deno. So that's just one thing. Oh, and also another thing is that although Deno does support TypeScript, the REPL doesn't support TypeScript. So Deno can only support TypeScript files. So if you run TypeScript files, then it'll work. But other than that, it will not work. So I'm just going to run this file that I've already coded. So it's just all this code does is it reads this text file, which says Deno is the future. So it reads the text file and it logs that the contents of the text file to the console. So to run that, we just say Deno run. We type in Deno run and the name of the file. This is a TypeScript file. It's written in TypeScript. As you can see, there's a type over there, which is string, type of string. And also another interesting fact is that for those of you who are JavaScript heads, you'd notice that there's an await keyword and it's not inside a asynchronous function, which is strange for those of you who are unfamiliar with top level await. Top level await is just a wait that is outside of an asynchronous function. So Deno does support top level await. Yeah, so if we run this file, okay, so we have a problem here. So if you just look at the error message that got generated or that came back to us, it says that we need to allow we need to allow permissions or grant permissions. So uncaught permission denied, read access to read.txt from blah, 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 allow read flag. So we need to allow Deno, we need to grant permissions to Deno to actually read from our file system. So we're gonna run the same command, but except with the allow read flag. Now, when we run it with the allow read flag, it works because that's how Deno works. You have to give permissions if you're gonna do certain things with the machine. Okay, so there it outputs it, Deno is the future. Okay, so now I'm just gonna show you how I did, or how I implemented the backend for the project that the little project that me and Dovi worked on. So all it is a calculator, and what it does is it just makes a call to an external API, which responds with the answer to a math expression. So just basic arithmetic, and it just responds with the answer. So I'm going to run this. Okay, so yeah, what I did was, or how I built it, is that I used a third-party module from Deno called ABC. So if you just search for ABC on the Deno website, it gives you what it is. And ABC is just a better Deno framework to create web applications. So ABC is similar to Express.js, if you guys are familiar with Node. So it's kind of like the Deno equivalent of Express. And well, there's more than just one, but I chose to use ABC. And as you can see, Deno uses imports instead of require. So it uses the import statement instead of requires. So it's not CommonJS, it's ES6. And yeah, another thing. Yeah, so let's just run it. Let's just run it. So we're just gonna say Deno run server.ts. And there again, it's complaining, it's telling me that I need to give it permissions to run the code. So I have to give it allow network permissions. So allow net. Okay, so it's running. So if I go to the browser, it's running on port 8000. So if I take a trip to the browser, localhost 8000, calculate. Oh, 80. Okay, so this is the default response if you don't provide it with the query parameters. So it takes in a query parameter, which is an expression. So we're just going to give it 1 + 1, just make sure it's working. And it gives us 2. Now let's try something more complex, like 35 multiplied by 4. And it gives us the correct answer. So yeah, that is it, guys. This is Deno. So, oh yes, and also it's more secure because you can, like, if you are, okay, so firstly, you have to give it permissions to do anything on your computer. So it's not just gonna do things and, you write, read from your file system or write to your file system. You have to give it permissions to do everything. So if you were to, for instance, download or import a module from a third party and you're not sure what it does, so Deno it does warn you if that third party module is doing something or does something that affects your file system. So previously with Node, you would never know if a module is writing or reading from your file system. But with Deno, it's easy to know because it asks you for permission first before it does anything. So another way that it's secure is that you can literally copy and paste this URL in your browser and go to where the code is. So you can read the source code of that module and see what it does. So if you don't trust, if you still are kind of sketchy or not really sure about that module and you don't trust it yet, you can copy and paste that URL and read through the code and see what it does. So you know exactly what it's doing and you know if it's malicious, and yeah. So that's Deno, and I hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
Thank you, guys. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dovi and Eddie. Interesting presentations and talks. Mithril especially is something I've never heard about. Deno I've played around with a bit, but I've never seen Mithril before. So I hope everybody has a great day, and we see you again next Thursday, same time.